Halloween is right around the corner, and the world of sports entertainment lends itself very well to larger-than-life, over-the-top characters, so that's why we proudly present 5 Halloween-themed wrestlers in the WWE. And starting at just number 5, we have the leader of the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt is one of the more recent characters we're going to be talking about in this list, and for good reason. You know, he does have these different elements that maybe he loses a lot of matches, but when it comes to this horror element, he can definitely deliver with these video packages alongside the family or on a solo form.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt's character is basically a Halloween-style, like, horror slasher fic. He comes from, like, the deep woods of Louisiana in a place that you feel like your skin's gonna get shaved off in. He's got the whole, like, big beard and the crazy family of followers and the whole lantern thing. It's a very, like, horror, spooky, frightening, like, character.
Yeah, they kind of have some elements of almost, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of stuff, and just, you know, that just a creepy backwoods culty type of stuff. He, you know, kind of some Rob Zombie-ish elements to him now, you know. Wyatt, like, they do a lot of good stuff with, I know when they debuted, they had like that guy showing up at their house or whatever, and they've done the Wyatt family compound and things. So they do a good job of trying to have that creepy element to them, where it's just this kind of, they're sort of common people, but there's like this supernatural element to them, and where like they could look normal at first, but then there's just something off about them.
He doesn't need a mask. All he needs is a microphone and believing in his character.
But Eric Rowan totally needs a mask.
Oh, poor Eric Rowan. Everything becomes about Eric Rowan. So let's just move on to number 4. So while we were working on this list, Keith said this guy needs to be on the list. Now, even though we can make the case for The Godfather, because he can be a Halloween-themed character, but we're not here to talk about him. We're going to the early 90s with Papa Shango. Why is he on this list?
Papa Shango. He's a witch doctor. He hexed the Ultimate Warrior. He was feuding with the Ultimate Warrior, and he made him, like, throw up green stuff. He was supernatural. He was magical. He was scary. He was Papa Shango. He was, like, the frightening character of that day. And I love Papa Shango. Maybe not the best wrestler, and yeah, like you said with The Godfather, that's more of a Halloween costume, because, you know, gotta make sure pimping is easy on Halloween. But Papa Shango is totally cool, coming out with, like, the skulls and making the Ultimate Warrior do crazy things worth a look on the network. Papa Shango's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting character that definitely worked at the time, but probably is a little too hokey and over the top to work today. But still really cool.
He'd work today.
Now, at number 3, this is a very similar character, maybe the most unoriginal, because the name itself is the Boogeyman, and he's coming to get ya. Now, he's going to come to get people on Raw, but then they moved him to SmackDown. He got injured. Eventually, he came to the scene. Out of all of these, this is easily the most controversial character because at the time, people didn't exactly enjoy it. This was when WWE had a lot of weird characters on SmackDown, but then here becomes this Halloween-themed character. He was backstage. He was breaking things like he was Flavor Flav. And ultimately, as time went by, he almost became a pop culture icon in WWE, where now he's all over the network, and people went from hating him to loving him.
Boogeyman, less frightening, more disgusting. I was one of those people that does not like the Boogeyman with the whole eating the worms and eating
worms.
Jillian Hall's mole. Yeah, real worms. Remember when he ate the mole? It's just a bunch of gross, disgusting stuff. Boogeyman was very good at what he did, though, especially with those, weird gyrations and stuff like that. Good character, didn't like it. Disgusting, gross.
Yeah, it's something that people were like, really, there's going to be a guy with a Boogeyman gimmick in, mid-2000s, whenever it was. And it really seemed like it was way too cheesy for the time. And a lot of it really was. But one thing you can't deny is his dedication to that gimmick.
Because he still lives it, doesn't he?
He still totally lives it. He does all those moves and stuff. He's a guy who it wasn't like when the bell rang, he was not the Boogeyman. He stayed the Boogeyman all the time, and that type of dedication shouldn't go unnoticed.
That last note there is really important where once the bell rang, he was able to still portray that. Yeah, it was a super weird dance, and he beat Booker T easily, who was deathly afraid of him, but he's still in the world of WWE today, which if you told anybody in the past, they would never believe you. Now, moving on to number 2, we start to get to the coup de grace of the characters that people grew up with in the world of wrestling. So during the Attitude Era, we met the Undertaker's apparently dead, not really, brother of Kane with the mask.
That's gotta be
Pyro
Kane.
in the corner.
That's
with
gotta
Pyro
be Kane.
Burning JR.
That's gotta be Kane.
You got Paul Bearer. You got everything. All the elements of a character that also makes a pretty badass Halloween costume, I may add.
Yeah. Kane, I mean, you could say multiple versions of Kane would be good. Halloween characters, the Kane with the mask, without the mask. He was even in a horror movie as
See No Evil.
I forget his.
Wasn't it Jacob
was he
Goodnight?
Yeah, I think so.
Why
was
do
the
I
Ice Cream
I
Man?
remember that?
Oh, yeah. So, you know, he's such a good horror character that he actually played one in a movie.
And really one of the people that portrayed a monster the best in WWE history, especially early Kane when he would come along. Like, that was a dude that was just there to hurt people, and he had, like, no emotion other than just, like, hurt. He just wanted to destroy. With the fire, with the whole early stuff with the Undertaker was very cool, and Kane has been able to keep that up in very different forms throughout his whole career, especially when he was unmasked and like lit JR on fire. Then it was the whole embrace the hate thing with John Cena. It's been very different. Like, there's been very different types of like monsters that Kane has portrayed, but they all have been pretty good.
Yeah, it's worth noting that we're excluding the Kane Rooney iteration of Kane out of this. We're focusing more on debut Kane and recently unmasked. I love to wear a black towel over my head Kane, because those two were pretty badass.
Corporate Kane,
Different
not
kind
so
of
much
monster.
fitting
Monster
on
in the
this.
boardroom.
Well, paying taxes
Dangerous
is
in
really
the sack.
scary, and if Corporate Kane likes taxes, he should be number one on this list.
Oh,
if
he's
you think
corporate.
about
He
it.
Yeah.
hates taxes. What
Like
are you talking
Hawaii
about?
Oh, okay,
Kane,
so he avoids
Hawaii
them.
Kane, man, monster on the beach.
Concession Kane, the scariest of
Exactly.
all.
Cotton
What will he put
candy.
in your food?
He causes diabetes. My God.
What a
okay, this is getting
monster.
too scary for me. Ice Cream Man.
the slow
won't
burn.
live. Number 1. We're talking about Kane at number 2, so you know that the primary pick for this list is the dead man himself, the phenom, the Undertaker. From day one, this is a character that should have not succeeded in wrestling, even back in the day. You have the Undertaker, basically this person that's supposed to be dead but is yet alive, but he was able to perform an evolution of his character from that era, the early 90s, to the Attitude Era, for the crucifixion, for all that crazy stuff. He evolved into some non-Halloween themed characters in the American Badass, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to say why he works so well as the Dead Man, as sort of a Halloween character in the world of the WWE.
With most big guys, with most monsters, it's very tough to believe it. Like, oh, you can get behind that. But with The Undertaker, everything he did in the ring and everything that he, like his look, his appearance, his moveset, it made him feel like a monster. In the early days, his look made him look like he was super dead. He was super pale, going around with Paul Bear, just as pale. And they had the funeral parlor and stuff. And the early iterations of The Undertaker always felt like, oh, this could actually be a super dead dude. And then he evolved more into the corporate ministry, and that was more like a gothic, like culty style. And then he got buried alive from the biker Undertaker, and then came back as this whole dead man thing. So they really closed the circle on, yeah, he used to look dead, now he's actually super dead in kayfabe with the Undertaker. And just the whole thing, he's been able to keep it up, that image up for so long. I would say that he's the best monster in wrestling history.
Oh, without question. And just not only was his character this sort of spooky Halloween type of themed character, but he brought in different types of matches that also fit that theme of like casket matches and Hell in a Cell and Buried Alive.
The last ride.
Just
match.
Not only. Yeah, no, exactly. The hearse match, a dream match come true, guys. I mean,
for the win.
Yep.
And he had actual magical powers, and it's insane that even today, it's sort of a respect factor. You know a character is good and not necessarily believable, but you enjoy it in the product when he lets out thunderbolts. There's smoke. There's these druids that come out, and it's like, of course that's what happens in wrestling. It's the freaking Undertaker. So those are 5 pretty great for different reasons, completely different reasons. Halloween-themed characters in the world of the WWE. If you're watching right now, drop a comment. Give us your top 5 or maybe your bottom 5, because if we talked about only bad Halloween-themed characters, we got to put a solid 30 to 40 people on this list. So if you enjoyed this
Here's
video,
a freebie, the ECW zombie.
He was almost on this list. Finn Balor, for the record, is not on this list for different reasons. The outfit, yes, it's Halloween themed, but the character itself, once he gets into the ring, before all of that stuff, it's really just the Daemon, but not necessarily a Halloween themed character. The Daemon. So give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out our WWE podcast available every single Wednesday night. We cover Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, predictions, wrestling news. If you want to get early access to some of our content, head on over to patreon.com/Byte That. You support, you get early access, you get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates, and if you want to hear us talk more about Kane, we actually have a Superstar Spotlight available on screen right now. We talked about the evolution of his character from debut to teaming up with X-Pac and other things that aren't that great, but Kane was pretty cool. So thank you for watching. Enjoy Halloween. And also, if you dress up as a different WWE Superstar in Halloween, let us know in the comments.
Have a friend.
Comics. In the comics. Who's Kami? Are we talking like Kami?
Whoa.
From Dragon Ball Z? Let's just end it there.